The art of trust, letting go to align with life. Imagine standing at the edge of a silent lake just before dawn. The water is still, perfectly still, like a mirror stretched between worlds. You crouch down, cup your hands, and try to hold some of it. But the harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. In seconds, you're left with shaking, empty hands. Now look up. The lake hasn't moved. It hasn't resisted. It simply remained itself while you struggled to hold what was never meant to be grasped. And in that moment, the truth lands in your chest. How many times have you done this with life? How often have you tried to hold on to expectations, timelines, outcomes, forcing clarity where there was only mist? You've clenched your fists, pushed harder when things wouldn't bend to your will. But has life ever obeyed control? Has the universe ever bowed to your urgency? There's a paradox you felt, but perhaps never named. The more you try to control life, the more chaotic it becomes. Why? Because effort to force certainty creates resistance. You become the dam in a river meant to flow. But in rare, sacred moments, when you stop forcing and simply float, life begins to move. Not away from you, but toward you. Not because you chased it, because you finally stopped getting in the way. But here's the dilemma. Letting go feels like risk. Trusting feels like recklessness. How do you surrender to life when life has hurt you? How do you release the grip when you've been told that control is power, that planning is wisdom, that uncertainty is weakness? You were taught to strive, to predict, to survive. But what if that's only half the truth? What if the path isn't about controlling more, but trusting deeper? Why do some people walk through chaos and still radiate calm? Why do some breathe easier while the world burns? It's not ignorance. It's not passivity. It's a different relationship with life. A rhythm built not on resistance, but on alignment. So ask yourself, what if life isn't a machine to be operated, but a river to be joined? What if your need for control is the very thing keeping you stuck? This isn't about blind faith. This is about choosing alignment over resistance, about seeing that the path you're trying to build might already exist, and all it needs is your willingness to trust. The need to control is ancient. It began as a survival instinct, hardwired into us by evolution. But over time, this once useful response has bled into every corner of our lives, our relationships, careers, identities. What once saved us is now quietly suffocating us, because control doesn't just limit chaos, it limits potential. The fear that fuels control is not strength, it's armor. And armor, while protective, also restricts movement, vision, freedom. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress. In suppressing uncertainty, spontaneity, and the unplanned, we suppress our very aliveness. Friedrich Nietzsche said it plainly: you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. He wasn't celebrating disorder. He was honoring the truth that our greatest power comes from embracing our whole self, not just the parts we can control. And Viktor Frankl reminded us, even in suffering, we can find meaning. That kind of strength, the kind born in surrender, is untouchable. Control doesn't lead to peace. It leads to burnout, anxiety, disconnection. You overanalyze, overschedule, overthink. You chase perfection and call it productivity, but inside you feel like you're drowning in your own plans. And society glorifies this. It turns control into a virtue and uncertainty into failure. But it's a lie, because the more you force life, the more it resists. The more you let go, the more it flows. Trust is the rebellion, not passive, not weak, but conscious, courageous, alive. It's the quiet voice inside that says, I don't have to know. I don't have to force. I choose to move with life, not against it. Like water, trust flows around obstacles. It doesn't fight the rocks. It glides past them quietly, powerfully, and without apology. And those who trust, they move differently. They receive more joy, peace, clarity, because they've stopped trying to shape life and instead allowed life to shape them. They become the flow. The paradox is this: the moment you let go of control is the moment you gain everything, not because you gave up, but because you finally aligned. Let that be your truth. Life doesn't need to be mastered, it needs to be trusted. And when you trust it, truly deeply, it will carry you further than the control ever could.